welcome to my May Recent Reads wrap up. I read a lot of amazing things in May, so let's talk about some of my favourites. First up is Tricks for Free by Shauna Maguire, and this was my encrypted book for the month, and this book specifically is the 7th, if I remember rightly. Yes, it is the 7th book in the series, and I always describe this series as being like what happens if the Addams family were cryptozoologists, and it kind of gives you an idea as to what this series is all about. This book specifically is about antimony, and I can't really give you much detail further than that, because that would be major spoilers for this series. But what I will say is that I really enjoyed this one. I loved that this one was set at a theme park and everything that entailed. I loved getting to know Antimony's new friends throughout here as well. I loved the storyline of it, and it was just so much fun. Antimony once again was giving me Wednesday Addams vibes, to go back to the Addams family analogy, which I absolutely loved. I loved all of her nerdy references as well throughout here, and then I also really enjoyed the short story at the end of this, which is about the Aisling mice, who are essentially hyper-religious talking mice, and it ended with me actually shipping the mice within this story, which I never thought would happen, but anything is possible in this series, apparently including shipping talking mice. But there we go. Either way, I really enjoyed this one. It was another fantastic book in the encrypted series, and I loved reading it. Next up was a continuation of the Chaos Walking series with Piper at the Gates of Dusk by Patrick Ness, and this was so much fun to read as well. I'm not going to go into full detail or anything, just because this is a brand new book and I do not want to be spoiling it for anyone, but also because I actually did a full reading vlog for this, which I will leave a link to up above if you want to check it out and see my full very spoilery thoughts on it. But what I will say is that I really liked this one. I really liked how this story continued on this world, and seeing how this world has moved on from the last book in the original Chaos Walking series. I love that we had a trans main character in here, as well as a character with a speech disability. I really like those elements. I obviously cannot speak to how well the representation was done, but out of the reviews I have seen, it does look like it was done very respectfully, so I really enjoyed those elements of it. I will say as well that this book is not as dark as the original trilogy, but it still very much hit home with the messaging within this series, which I really enjoyed. And that cliffhanger ending, oh my god, I was screaming at the end of this, and I am now desperate for the next book, so I'm gonna need like a time machine to get the next one, because obviously, like I said, this is a brand new release. But I loved this one and thoroughly enjoyed myself reading it. I then also read Our Shadows Have Claws, and this is 15 Latin American monster stories, and it gave me that horror buzz that I was looking for in this month, and all of them were so much fun to read. They definitely gave me that creepy factor that I was looking for this month, which I found really enjoyable. But the stories that definitely stood out to me, and I'm going to apologise right now if I mispronounce any of the words or any of the names that I'm about to mention, but there is The Nightingale and the Lark by Chantal Acevedo, The Boy from Hell by Amparo Oritz, La Pata Sola by Raquel Marie, La Madrina by Yamale Said Mendez, and Sugary Deaths by Lilian Rivera. I enjoyed all of the stories in here, but those were the ones that really stood out and I really enjoyed. And then the final book I've got to mention before I go into a few of the comics is The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi, and this one is exactly what it says on the tin. It is about a guy who ends up going to work for a Kaiju Preservation Society after he has lost his job during the pandemic, and this was so much fun to read. John Scalzi himself has described this as being very much like a pop song, and I have to agree with him. It was very quick, very fun. It brought me a whole load of joy. It was also filled with pop culture references, which I loved. It also took subtle digs at billionaires, which again I absolutely adored, and I just had the greatest time reading this one. Then as for the comics I read, the first one I've got to mention is Monsterverse Declassified, and this is a series of short stories about various different titans within the Monsterverse, which is the universe of King Kong, Godzilla, all of that good stuff. And this was so much fun once again. The 4 stories were written by different authors. Specifically, you had Behemoth, which was done by Greg Keyes. We also had Tiamat, which is by David M. Booher, then Abaddon by Daniel J. Park, and Doug by Rosie Knight. And I really enjoyed all of the stories in here and getting to know about these different titans, but the ones that stood out specifically to me was the Abaddon one, because it was so creepy and it looked like this on the inside. It's about Abaddon, the giant spider, and the story in here is going to keep me awake at night, I won't lie, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It creeped me out, which was exactly what I wanted. And then the other one I really enjoyed was about Doug, which looked like this on the inside, because it was the complete opposite of that Abaddon one, because it was so silly and it just brought me a whole load of joy. And to be honest, every single one in here brought me a whole amount of joy, and I loved reading it. It made my Kaiju, King Kong, Godzilla loving heart very, very happy to read. There was another issue of Doctor Strange by Derek Landy coming out this month, so naturally I read it as soon as it dropped through my door, and it was once again brilliant. I can't give you plot details because obviously that'd be spoilers, but what I will say is that the artwork inside here is absolutely gorgeous once again, and Derek Landy really understands Doctor Strange as a character and sorcerers in general, so I thoroughly enjoyed myself reading this. And finally, I also read Spider-Noir Hard-Boiled Origins, which actually covers his first 2 volumes in Marvel Comics history, and I really enjoyed myself reading these ones. They were a fantastic introduction to Spider-Noir as a character and really set him apart from everybody else within the Spider-Verse, which I really enjoyed. I also really liked that this one was actually a lot darker than I was expecting in terms of how this Peter lost his Uncle Ben and things like this, and I also really enjoyed as well that this did not shy away from like the burgeoning World War II or anything else. And I also love the fact that a lot of this just involved Spider-Noir beating up Nazis, which was so much fun to read as well. If you are looking for the origin to Spider-Noir, definitely check these ones out. Or if you just want to see one of the Spider heroes beating up Nazis, this is definitely a great one to read. And those were my favourite reads from the month of May. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you read in May. I would love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a spider emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link as well down below to all my social media if you want to check it out. Or if you just want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here. And over here will be the link to my previous video. But till next time everyone, bye!